Hello and welcome. My name is Yuri and I'm Creatio Academy trainer. In today's Tech Hour, we will be talking about governance app. As usually, I'm supported by colleagues of mine who will address any question of yours using chat. So should you have any, don't hesitate to ask them. So before we dive into today's topic, let's first check what governance app is designed for and thus who would benefit from it. And also this will determine whether you should stay for our today's tech hour, right? So the governance application was created first and foremost for Creatio partners. If you're Creatio partner, depending on how long you've been working with Creatio, how big your company is, and a lot of contributing factors, you could be maintaining from few to a great numbers of customers. If you're a smaller shop, focusing more on nurturing your existing profiles, then obviously you would be maintaining fewer customers. If you're somewhere in between small shop and big enterprise, that would still make you maintaining more or less probably like a dozen customers. And in itself, what it means, a dozen customers, also means that for every customer, you would have probably at least three environments, right? One for development, one more for testing, and then finally one for prod. So a dozen customer basically stands for a few dozen of environments. And being Creatio partner usually also means that you're offering first line support. And on top of it, you could be offering some extra services of yours to your customers. So needing to maintain few dozen of different environments could be challenging. And this is where governance app comes in handy. So governance app allows you to use your own environment and connect it to all those few dozen environments that you need to maintain. Then you could use controls in order to check if those applications, if all those environments of yours do meet certain standards that you've established. So basically, you run audits, checking for those environments for compliances, using so-called controls that have some backstage automation, and thus ensuring that all those environments are in check. A few examples would be, for example, like checking if no environment of yours are using tracing data for business processes when that is not necessary, thus not creating huge loads of unnecessary data. Or if all the password complexities are in check. So that can be achieved with governance application. As I mentioned, I do see some application for Creatio customer, because if you Creatio customer, you still need to maintain at least those three mentioned environments, development, testing, and prod. But again, primarily that would be beneficial for Creatio partners. So at this point, I will start sharing my screen and we will look into how you can use a governance app, what's inside, so that I hopefully will encourage you to test it on your own. So as you install your governance application, immediately a new workplace called governance will become available to you. This workplace contains the home for some analytics and also environments, controls, and issues sections. We'll start with the environments. This is where we are connecting our controlling environments to all the controlled environments. To do so, I will click Connect New Environment. I'll give it a title, say Academy Testing. I will then need to specify the URL of the environment that I want to connect, then I would need to also just a second. Then I also need to give credentials to the user that has control over that environment. Usually that would be supervisor. Now, if I refresh this list, I will see that this environment of mine, Academy Testing, has been successfully connected to the environment that we're looking into. So let's open this record and see what is inside. So I have 3 tabs, and before we look into greater detail on our environment form page, we will first run an audit. That is because it does require some time to be processed. But before that, kindly notice that there are no records in my controls tab. Also, if we go to audit or issues, nothing is available here. Well, not yet. So at this point, I hit launch audit, and we will use time required for processing to look into this page and then control section as well. So first, we can see that there are some open and resolved issues. What an issue is, we will discover soon, but these are some metrics that will allow us to look into that information immediately. We have our name, we have our host. Also, we could potentially group our environments. At this point, this is a lookup that you should be populating on your own, but there are 2 use cases for it. So usually you probably want to group your environment by client. So I'd have my Academy Testing, Academy Development, Academy Product, etc., right? But alternatively, if you have created an industry-specific solution, you could potentially also group your environments to that by that solution, and that can be useful if you would want to create a control that you only want to be executed for that solution of yours. Also, you could specify at which stage this environment is. I'll choose pre-production here. You also have the information on your connection status and the last attempt of your connection. Now I'll go to controls and refresh the list. It's not done yet, but I can already see that some environment controls has been added. So these are the controls that are specific and unique to this particular environment, and they come from a different parenting entity. So at this point, they're still being processed. So let's look into the control section. So in my control section, I'll refresh real quick. In my control section, I have all those controls that predefine for what we are checking the controlled environment. What are those compliances, right? I can see that we're probably done or almost done with the audit, but we'll check controls first nonetheless. We only look into the list at this point because a thing that I wanted to point out that you will see some controls being already active out of the box. They are launched upon audit and you can test them, so they are operational already. Also, you would be creating your own unique controls, and we will look into what a control is in great detail soon. But in this list, you will also see some controls that are not yet active. These are designed to be sort of a template that could navigate you to the idea of what a control might be. So they already have some description. What they're lacking is some automation behind those controls. So feel free to also try completing those maybe as well. Maybe that could be your starting point before you even can create your own control from scratch. Now let's get back to environments and our environment. So first, on our audit tab, what I can see is that a record for an audit occurrence has been created. We have its status, it is complete, we have some opened issues. We will look into those later on. And if we open that audit occurrence record, there's also some information available. So first, these would be the controls that have been executed for this audit, for this particular audit occurrence. Keep in mind that this is a table. There could be more controls. And also, as you probably have noticed, all these pages are still available for being edited by yourself, right? So you can still change the layout of any of these pages or lists. So what we have here is the type of the audit. At this point that we have two, those being signal control or default audit. We have its status. We have environment for which this audit occurrence happened, and also when did it happen and who was responsible. Now we'll go to controls and see into what has been created. So we will use one of the unsuccessful, the controls where the last check did not pass. So what is being created here is a control that is now to be executed for this particular environment. This is not a control occurrence, but rather a control that will be from now on be executed for this environment whenever we run our audit. So what we have here, if we go to environment control details, we have a short description. What this control is designed for, what we're checking for, and why it should be checked for, because non-compliance in this part could be an issue. We have our environment for which this control has been created. We have the control that has been used to create this environment control. Also, we have our last check result. If control is active, by simply deactivating it, we will make it so that next time I click run audit for the environment, this control is not going to be used. Also, we have our automations in control. Those are copied from control, from this one, system administrator rights. We will look there soon. And issues, to which we will circle back. So where does this information come from? If I now go to the control that has been used for this environment control, I will see that this is in fact the entity where we create all the logic that we are applying every time we're running an audit. And once I run the audit, the system will take all the active controls, and on their basis will create the environments control that we've just looked into. So what a control is and what it does offer. So first we have our short description and then full description, which again allows us to understand better why it is needed. And the description is also obviously copied to the environment control. Also, we have the type of the control. We also could have controls that can have parameters. For example, password complexity control would rely on system settings like minimum amount of characters for password complexity. And as such a control would have parameters. If you make changes to the system settings, well, next time you run this control and the process behind it, it will measure it against a different value now. So that would be an example of a control with parameters. Also, a control can have a whitelist. It means that whenever an issue item, or to put it simple, a record where we had some mismatch to a standard was created, we can whitelist that record. So next time we run an audit, it won't take it into consideration. If control is active, it will mean that every time you launch an audit for the very first time, all the controls that are active will create those environment controls. Also, you will have this is default checkbox in different sections, which simply allows you to understand whether this control comes out of the box or not. Now, one of the most important thing here, obviously, is the control automation. A control automation is simply put the action that is taken behind scenes. That action itself, also the automation, also has the description of what is being executed. And should you wish to check into the process code, maybe to replicate it, upgrade, make changes to it, you can use the process code. Then you can go to a process library and check for the process itself. Most of them will have sub-processes, some not. Quite a lot will have user actions. Obviously, this is a development tool, right? But you can look into the existing logic to maybe create one of your own. So that would be a control automation, the process that is executed once a control, an environment control, is being executed. Now our control also can have a resolution guidance, which is very, very useful, as we will see it later on in our issue items as well. So you can describe what would be the solution for this, for the issue. So next we have our Applied To tab. Different controls can be applied to different environments. By default, the controls that you have out of the box are applicable to all environments. Basically meaning, again, you create a new connection, you run your audit, and the control will be executed for it. But if I switch to it from all environments to, say, environment groups, under Applied To tab, I will now see the option to add those groups. So what it means that, as I mentioned, you could potentially create controls that you would only want to be added for a particular customer. Again, groups at this point are empty. Or again, maybe you've created an industry-specific solution and you've designed controls that you only want to be applied there. So that would be the way to do that, to apply it to a specific group. So this is the control that is used whenever an environment control is executed. Now back to environment control. So we run our audit. An environment control based on the control that we've just looked into has been created. And now, because we did have some non-compliant records, an issue has been created to it. So the issue will also have its description. An issue in itself will group together the records where the problem occurred. So on the issue details, we have the again the control description for you to better understand why it's important. If you have created the guidance for resolution, that will also be copied into the issue. Also, you will have the status of the issue, and which environment it comes from, in which audit it occurred, and which environment control was responsible to finding this issue. Now, in every issue, you will have so-called issue items. And issue items is simply put a record in the controlled system where the problem is. So if you open an issue item, you will most importantly see the record ID to that record, right? And now you also have your control description. You will have your resolution if you have preset that on the control level to allow it to help whoever is maintaining it to cover this issue. Now, if our control has whitelist option enabled, we have this action include into whitelist. But for it to appear again, that option should be enabled. So when you click include into whitelist, next time we will run audit, this record with this ID will simply be ignored. On top of that, you have the option to check if the issue item has been resolved. What will happen in this case, an audit will run. Only this time, the audit will only run the environment control that was responsible for creating this issue record. All the issues are also available to you in issues section. So this here concludes today's subject on how you can try controls. Again, hopefully it did encourage you to try and test it on your own. To get a governance app, you can use Creatio Marketplace and look for it in there. There is obviously a testing period to it. Now, today I have been using demo environment to show you the governance application. You probably would be using your, again, not for resale licenses, environment that uses NFR licenses, an environment of your own if you're a Creatio partner. Or if you're a Creatio partner, you probably would have a couple of demo environments on your hands at any time. But if you would be using trial environment, or maybe because I didn't have a chance to test it on an NFR-based environment, you might need to check with support to ensure that the testing licenses has been issued. So thank you for joining us today. I do sincerely hope this was useful, and we will see you on the next Tech Hour. See you soon.